I want to give a brief overview of the Oversight Board work since the last public board meeting in September. Infrastructure, which took up a significant part of my remarks in September when I discussed the PREPA Plan of Adjustment and Puerto Rico's progress and challenges in its transition towards renewable energy, remained the key focus. The PREPA Plan of Adjustment, which would reduce PREPA's debt by about 80% and save Puerto Rico about $15 billion in principal and interest payments, remains on track. The U.S. District Court scheduled confirmation hearings in March, and we are confident that our plan is confirmable, despite some significant opposition from those bondholders who have not agreed to the proposed terms. However, a significant number of bondholders have agreed to the plan, support that is critical for the confirmation, and we hope we will gain even more support in the months ahead of the hearings. The transformation of Puerto Rico's energy system is so important for everyone here, and Puerto Rico cannot move forward without getting PREPA out of bankruptcy. So we are pushing to end PREPA's bankruptcy so Puerto Rico can finally get more reliable and cleaner energy. The government has also reached a significant milestone to improve Puerto Rico's infrastructure this quarter with the agreement with PR Toll Roads, which will operate under the name Puerto Ricans already know. Metropistas PR Toll Roads will now manage PR 20, PR 52, PR 53, and PR 66. Under the concession agreement, PR Toll Roads agreed to invest in improved roadways and improve safety and upgrades, make repairs to drainage, signage, barriers, guardrails, and lighting within the first 2 years of the agreement. Over the next 7 years, PR Toll Roads agreed to major reconstruction and improvements to road surfaces and bridges, and other major improvements have to be completed within the next 12 years. This should bring Puerto Rico's toll roads to a state of good repair as defined by the Federal Highways and Transportation Authority. The concession agreement also allows HTA to repay the debt, which the Oversight Board has already reduced by more than 80%. In addition, the agreement provides Puerto Rico with an almost $1 billion capital improvement fund, which the government has agreed to dedicate to capital projects for the construction, maintenance, and improvement of Puerto Rico's non-toll road network. The Oversight Board approved restricting these funds for strictly transportation infrastructure, and I would like to commend the government for its commitment to invest in road maintenance over the next decades. Together, we must ensure strong safeguards to preserve these funds and their benefits for the long term. The people of Puerto Rico depend on solid and well-maintained roads, and now we have a funding stream to ensure that over the long term. We also made progress with the government on the partial implementation of the early retirement program under Law 80-2020. The Oversight Board and AFAF have made substantial progress to define the terms of the implementation for certain non-essential government employees, and the government's impacted agencies as well as public corporations took great care to complete a very complicated and time-consuming determination of identifying specifically which positions were non-essential and that their permanent elimination would not adversely affect the government's ability to provide essential services to Puerto Rico's residents. The Oversight Board and the government will continue working together with a final stipulation that would enable implementation of the program in the spring of 2024. Taxes have become a front-page issue in recent months in Puerto Rico. The Oversight Board supported a multi-year cap of the inventory tax at the level of current payments. Such a cap would make more goods available, but also guarantee inventory tax revenue equal to the highest annual collections from the prior 3 years, so municipal finances would not suffer a decline in revenue, while businesses could increase their inventory and investments without the burden of an additional tax. Capping the inventory tax seemed like a reasonable compromise to provide tax relief on a tax that has negative impact on businesses and the island's overall economic development, while not impacting the financial plan's budget. The Puerto Rico House of Representatives passed such a bill to freeze the inventory tax, but unfortunately, the Puerto Rico Senate did not move the bill along. However, both houses of the legislature, of the Legislative Assembly, passed substitute to House Bill 1839, which is one of the largest personal and corporate income tax cuts in Puerto Rico's recent history. This massive tax cut would reduce government revenues by about $750 million in its current fiscal year, along with almost $3 billion over the next 5 years, only a year after emerging from bankruptcy. After passing a budget on June 30th of this year, the legislature went on to pass new revenue and spending measures which would add up to nearly $1 billion this year outside of the budget process. The tax reduction bill as it stands threatens the government's fiscal stability, and the substantial losses in revenue combined with the government's spending priorities would push the government's budget back into deficit, erasing the progress made in recent years to stabilize Puerto Rico's finances. The Oversight Board and the Governor's administration is now working on updating the fiscal plan for 2024, and the revised projections based on updated current data will be the basis for the fiscal year 2025 budget. The fiscal plan the governor proposed includes a significant increase in long-term revenues and outlines several new spending priorities. While some of those new spending priorities have merit, as a whole, the plan does not adequately consider whether those expenditures are affordable, and we are working with the government to align the revenues and the spending. For the Oversight Board to fully consider the government's requests, revisions to the proposed plan will be required, and we will work with the governor's administration to develop a fiscal plan, as we have in the past, that will guide Puerto Rico's economic development and path to fiscal responsibility as mandated under Promesa. The Oversight Board will be providing a detailed analysis of Puerto Rico's fiscal situation shortly when it publishes its first quarterly financial update. We decided to provide regular quarterly updates to give the people of Puerto Rico, the government, investors in Puerto Rico's futures, and those who are interested in Puerto Rico's fiscal stability, more timely data about where Puerto Rico stands. These financial plan updates are common amongst local governments, and they should be regular practice here. I believe that this will add clarity and transparency not only to the Oversight Board's projections and decisions, but to the overall state of Puerto Rico's finances. Our projections in the fiscal plan are based on the most current data available, and our estimates rely on the data that the government provides. The Oversight Board does not generate its own data, and that is why the Oversight Board's projections and the difference between projections and actual government revenue and expenditures have been very similar. There are forecast error rates seen in Puerto Rico's projections in both FOMB and the government's projections, but they are still within expectations given the very high reliance on volatile revenue streams such as corporate taxes and multiple economic shocks. In the past fiscal year 2023 that ended on June 30th, general fund revenues exceeded forecast but decreased year over year relative to fiscal year 2022. In the first quarter of the current fiscal year 2024, however, general fund revenues have exceeded projections, driven primarily by business-related income taxes, both corporate income taxes and non-resident withholding, personal income taxes, sales and use taxes, and the motor vehicles excise tax. The stability and predictability of revenue collections in Puerto Rico is challenged by the characteristics of its tax base. Specifically, taxes on corporations contribute a significantly higher proportion of total general fund revenues in Puerto Rico. They account for approximately 38% of revenues in Puerto Rico compared to only 8% in the mainland U.S. and federal revenues. Corporate taxes historically are volatile and difficult to forecast, given that they are influenced by various factors, such as the economic business cycle and sophisticated fiscal strategies of individual corporations. The report for the first quarter of the fiscal year will show that Puerto Rico's current economic performance is better than previously forecasted, mainly because decreased inflation, increased economic activity, and stronger revenue collections. Economic performance in Puerto Rico has been boosted by continuous emergency and stimulus funds from the federal government. There are, however, potential significant spending obligations, including Medicaid costs, uncertain long-term Medicaid funding levels, potentially new recurring expenditures that are currently paid with one-time federal funds, and including salary increases for teachers and potential additional Commonwealth contributions to fund disaster relief projections. Those spending obligations include salaries for teachers and correctional officers, and that are right now funded by one-time federal funds that will expire in 2024. We need to make sure the budget makes room to fund those over the long term. Potentially maintaining higher levels of funding for the University of Puerto Rico and municipalities are also issues that need to be discussed. Additional funds to cover an increased local share of the earned income tax credit, expansion of the Medicaid program, higher than estimated PAYGO pension costs, requested salary increases for firefighters. These items may themselves have their merits. Teachers and firefighters deserve their salaries, and the EITC is a sensible program. But taken together, these funding requirements could affect the fiscal balance of the current fiscal year and in the future, particularly if the government lowers taxes at the same time that we are incurring these additional expenses. Taking on additional expenditures specified under the incremental funding risks without a sustainable recurring funding source could create a budget imbalance. Already, the Legislative Assembly passed legislation impacting the current year's budget by $1 billion only months into the new fiscal year. The Legislative Assembly did not amend the budget to accommodate the costs. It simply passed the laws without regard to the budget impact. No government can increase spending and reduce income over an extended period of time without threatening its fiscal stability. However, given that the currently projected overperformance in revenue for FY 2024, the Oversight Board believes that there is an opportunity to agree to some form of one-time, non-recurring relief for individual income tax filers for the current tax year, 2023. And within the frame of the government's already established spending priorities. So board members, the Oversight Board is closing a very successful calendar year in 2023. We made progress on the PREPA debt restructuring, including a significant legal win in our efforts to reduce bondholder claims against the utility to affordable levels. HTA has new funds to invest in road improvements. Together with the governor and the Legislative Assembly, we agreed on a budget that was compliant with the fiscal plan, and it was passed on time. We hope we can end the year with some form of tax relief for the people of Puerto Rico, and we continue in our negotiations with the government and the legislature. Thank you.